Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, this is a question or a topic that a lot of married couples have requested for me to discuss. And that is the issue of kissing and the issue of touching between a husband and wife. They want to know that if a man was to kiss his wife or vice versa, or a man was to touch his wife or vice versa, would that break their fast? So inshallah ta'ala, before we address that, let us just take a step back and remind ourselves of what are the three primary things that we fast from. The three primary things that we fast from, that we withhold from, is food, drink, and intercourse. Intimacy, which is actually intercourse, okay? Now, of course, these are the things that if you fall into them while you're fasting, your fast is broken. But there's other things that we fast from as well, such as sins and whatnot. But that I discussed in a previous video that I did on Iftar with Imran, and you can catch it if you missed it. So we don't have to talk about food and drink because that's not relevant here. We have to talk about the intercourse. The intercourse, if one does it, it will break their fast. Question now, what is considered intercourse? The ulama explain, the scholars explain, that intercourse is the mere penetration. The two intimate organs coming together, and for when they come together and they meet in that way and penetration takes place, your fast is broken. Because some people think that it only breaks if a person releases, ejaculates or whatever have you. No, that's not necessary. The mere coming together of the two intimate organs to the point where penetration takes place is enough for your fast to be broken. Okay? And if you do break that fast, then as I explained on the Fasting in Furious course, where I went to it in detail, a person is required to free a slave. If they can't find a slave to free, then they must fast for 2 consecutive months. If they're not able to fast for 2 consecutive months for whatever happens, maybe a medical illness or whatever have you, then they have to feed 60 people. And it's a hugely major sin. Okay, but we discussed that on the Fasting in Furious program. If you want to look into that, go to the link below. You can register for the program, which is our Ramadan course in our Muslim Survival Guide. Now, question. Does kissing a spouse or touching a spouse, whether you touch them, whatever, and you embrace them and whatnot, would that fall under the prohibition of the intercourse, the penetration? No, it doesn't. Kissing your spouse will not break your fast. Touching your spouse, embracing your spouse will not break your fast. Because it is not the same as intercourse. It's not the same as penetration. The evidence for this is the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, also Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah narrates it. From Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبل وهو صائم. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam used to kiss his wives whilst he was fasting. Not just that, ويباشر وهو صائم. He used to embrace his wives while he was fasting, alayhi salatu wassalam. But then look what she said, وَلَكِنَّهُ أَمْلَكُ لِإِرْبِهِ. But the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam was the one who is the most in control of his desires. So here, that part at the end is powerful. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he kissed his wives, he embraced them and whatnot, but because he was in control of his desires. So that now we understand from this, not myself, but the ulama, as I'm going to question to you, as I'm going to quote to you, just such as Shaykh ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, I'm going to mention him to you in a second. But what the ulama they derive from this is that a person can kiss and can embrace and touch their spouse, provided that that person is in control of their desires. But if you have a person who's just recently married, and he's roasted, he just got married, then that's a brother and a sister who are going to regularly break their fast. So for them, it's not appropriate for them to be kissing. It's not appropriate for them to be embracing and touching, because that can very quickly escalate. That can very, very quickly escalate. And if that does, you've broken your fast. Huge sin. And if you go into the intercourse, huge expiation and atonement you need to do. Free a slave. If you don't find it, you need to fast 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months for missing one fast. That's not a joke, brothers and sisters. Do you see what I'm saying? And of course, if you can't do that, then you feed 60 people. So that's not a joke, my brothers and sisters. That's a very big thing. So it's best that a person stays away. Sometimes I don't even understand how people, they get married just before Ramadan. And I should be getting married 6 months before Ramadan. 6 months before Ramadan, especially if you're a young brother. You see what I'm saying? Some people I know got married in Ramadan. I don't know how they do that. You know, you're really risking your fast. It's not wise, it's not smart. You waited so long, wait till Eid. Wait till the day after Eid, inshallah ta'ala. And then you can get married. So I'm going to mention to you a quote from Imam Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah. He said in his Majalis Shahr Ramadan, he said that if the fasting one fears for himself, that by kissing, embracing, touching, he might end up ejaculating. He might end up releasing because he's not able to control his excitement. Or that he thinks that maybe he might not just release, but it might actually escalate to the point where intercourse and penetration takes place and the person actually falls into actual intercourse. Then he said for that person, due to his lack of strength in controlling his desires, it becomes haram for that person to even kiss his wife. It becomes haram for him to embrace and touch her. Why? Because anything that leads to a haram will also become haram. It is permissible for you to kiss your wife and embrace your wife, or vice versa, if you're in control. As Aisha radiallahu anha said, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, وَلَكِنَّهُ كَانَ أَمْلَكَ لِإِرْبِهِ. He was the most in control of his desires, alayhi salatu wasalam. Like, if you're not in control of your desires, then you're not allowed now, as Imam Ibn Uthaymin is saying. Now, because that kissing, in and within itself is not haram, but it will lead to the haram. And because it will lead to the haram, Imam Ibn Uthaymin mentioned, the door to that haram is closed for you. So it depends. If you know your brother or your sister who finds it hard to control themselves, for you, don't even kiss your spouse. Don't even touch your spouse in any intimate way until after the iftar time. And the evidence that Ibn Uthaymin brought for this, he said when the Prophet ﷺ said, "Baligh fil istinshaq illa an takuna sa'im." That you can when you do wudu, you take the water into your nose, right? The Prophet said, take the water in your nose as high as you can, except when you're fasting. Why? Because when you're fasting, if you take it too high, you might actually end up swallowing the water and it might go down into your throat and into your stomach, and that can break your fast. So again, you can put the water up your nose, but when you're fasting, because there's a danger it might break your fast, you don't take it up so high. So the same way, you can kiss your spouse, you can touch her, but if you fear that it might break your fast because you won't be able to control yourself, you might ejaculate, then it became a problem for you, brothers. Okay, or sisters. Okay, now we have another question that's kind of linked to this, which we need to discuss, okay? And that is the question pertaining to the pre-ejaculatory fluid. Pre-ejaculatory fluid. When a person is being intimate or is being, intimately aroused, there is something that releases. There's a fluid that kind of releases or leaks out of the intimate organ, okay? There is a discharge, you can call it. This discharge is called pre-ejaculatory fluid. It is not the seminal fluid that comes out at the time of ejaculation. Rather, it is a pre-ejaculatory fluid. And this usually comes as a result of arousal. Now, say there is a brother who is in control of his desires, okay? He's not going to end up falling into, it's not going to escalate to a point where he's not going to control it and he's going to fall into doing intercourse with his spouse. Nor is this person going to lose control of himself and end up ejaculating. But he happens to be kissing his spouse or, touching and whatever, being intimate. And, somehow, some way, this pre-ejaculatory fluid, this pre-ejaculatory discharge releases from his organ, his intimate organ. Does that break the fast? According to the strongest opinion of the ulama, the fuqaha, the jurists, it does not break your fast. It does not break your fast. It's not a problem. But then once again, a person should stay away from this. If you're getting aroused and you're seeing ejaculatory discharge and whatnot, that's a sign that, things could escalate. So you want to stay away from any sign of harm, any difficulty in any way, shape or form. You want to stay far away from that, okay? Question. What if a person is being intimate with their spouse, i.e. they're kissing, they're embracing, they're touching. Now the person actually ends up ejaculating. That breaks your fast. Your fast is broken. You need to repent. You need to feel remorseful for what you've done. That is serious. That is serious, brothers and sisters. Breaking your fast is not a joke. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Sahih ibn Khuzaymah. narrated in Sahih ibn Khuzaymah, the Prophet ﷺ saw a people being punished from their own organs and blood was gushing out from them. And he asked, who are these people? And he was told, these are the people who used to break their fast. They used to destroy their fast, they used to nullify their fast before the time, before Maghrib, before Iftar time. They used to just break their fast. Their punishment was that they would be punished from their own organs, their own internal organs, and then blood was gushing out from them. So you have to be careful, brothers and sisters. But the difference here is that if you ejaculate without intercourse, you do not have to free a slave. You do not have to fast 2 consecutive months. You do not have to feed 60 people. You just bring that fast back. But you have done a major sin. You have done a major sin. You have done a major sin for which you need to repent, beg Allah for forgiveness, remorse, and bring it back. But the only time you would have to free a slave, if you can't free a slave, remember you only do it if you can't find a slave to free. If you can't find a slave to free, then you fast 2 consecutive months. If you genuinely cannot do that to whatever inability that you have, such as a medical inability, then you would feed 60 people. But that only happens for when you break your fast due to actual intercourse, due to actual penetration. And finally, brothers and sisters, if a person has a wet dream, again, that doesn't break your fast. That does not break your fast because that was not something that you were in control of. So I hope that answers your question. To summarize, basically, yes, you can kiss your spouse, you can embrace and touch your spouse, but only if you're in control of your desires. If you're not in control, you fear it might escalate. That is a problem. Close the door to harm. As Imam Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah said, it can reach the level of being haram for you, depending on your own situation. I hope, brothers and sisters, at this moment in time, I'd really like to encourage you guys, if you haven't already, sign up to our Muslim Survival Guide. We have a Ramadan course, okay? People are really enjoying, really benefiting, saying it's really changed their Ramadan. Not only that, we've just released a course on the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha on there. So if you go to the link below, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully you can register, you can sign up, and we'll catch you on the other side. If you missed the other Iftar with Imran's, please go to the link, please go to the playlist section of this YouTube channel and click on the playlist called Iftar with Imran, and hopefully you can catch up with that which you've missed. I have to now love you and leave you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.